A common Chinese saying, only those with the hard fist have the right to speak. Free speech is equated with obedience to the powerful. Given that your husband just publicly threatened to decapitate a woman simply because she disagreed with him, how would you feel if one day you disagree with him? Just keep distance from the party, from those bullies. Hello everyone, as you can see from my last video, I attended a demonstration about blank paper movement a few days ago, and I find people's reaction to my demonstration really interesting, so I summarized the questions I was asked most frequently into two, which are the two topics I'd like to talk about in this video. So here we go. First question, where should the boundaries of free speech be? Many people approached me to discuss free speech as this topic is closely related to the incident. I'd like to start this topic by showing you a viewpoint that is contrary to my own. At a demonstration in October, I met an international student, a very articulate girl who expressed her views gracefully. She believed that the CCP's persecution of dissidents is somewhat tolerable because absolute free speech does not exist in any country. After all, cases of people being punished for speech still happen in Western nations like the UK and the US. I agree that absolute free speech does not exist, but that does not mean all cases of speech-related punishment should be accepted equally. Some cases are far more intolerable than others. Here's an example. A British buddy told me that speech restrictions in the UK have been increasing lately. He mentioned a woman who posted on social media saying that she wanted to burn down a refugee hotel. She deleted the post quickly but was still arrested. Some people might hear this and say, see, the UK government and the CCP are the same, both crack down on free speech. But I don't agree for two reasons. First, the motivations behind the two governments' actions are different. In the UK case, the woman's statement could reasonably be interpreted as a threat to commit a violent act. Just imagine how you would react if a stranger said something like that to you in person. You would likely feel alarmed or even offended. Whether her words constitute an offense is debatable, but at least the government could offer a coherent rationale, which means they can plausibly argue that she was stirring up hatred or endangering public order. The blank paper girl's case, however, involved nothing of the sort. Holding up a blank sheet of paper is, in any culture and under any circumstances, not offensive. She threatened no one, incited no violence, and even expressed no explicit message at all. The paper was literally blank. The only message it conveyed was her refusal to echo the official narrative. So China's decision to arrest her had nothing to do with public safety or preventing violence. It was entirely about defending the party's authority. Her detention was a clear act of political repression imposed solely to protect the party's power by suppressing citizens' freedom of expression. Second, the UK government does not have absolute power to define the boundaries of free speech, while the CCP does. The woman in the UK still had the right to defend herself after she was charged. As her case became controversial, those who supported her and those who supported the government might have engaged in a debate. And it is through such debates, arguments, and even heated disagreements in society that the boundaries of free speech emerge. Like a tug of war, both sides keep pulling until the rope's knot eventually settled at a point of balance. But beforehand, no single side knows exactly where this balance will ultimately settle, because it is a dynamic equilibrium reached through the struggles and the compromises of all parties involved. So this is how I understand what is happening in the UK. When more and more British around me complain that their government is infringing on free speech, they are like engaging in such tug-of-war with the government over who gets to define the boundaries of free speech, and this very act is in itself an exercise of free speech. So the situation in China, however, is dramatically different. It is extremely rare to see people challenging the government for the right to define such boundaries. Many people even believe that such boundaries have always been drawn by a single group of people who holds absolute power in society, rather than being the result of multi-party negotiating and contestation. A common Chinese saying is that only those with the hard fist have the right to speak. Therefore, in the eyes of most Chinese people, free speech is equated with obedience to the powerful. It is about restricting and regulating one's own words and actions according to the rules set by the absolute power holder, which is the Communist Party. Then they frequently apply this same pattern to understand Western free speech. They assume that in countries like the UK and the US, the wealthiest merchants or capitalists are the absolute rule makers of Western society. They believe that the free speech practiced by Westerners is nothing more than speaking and acting under the rules established by these wealthy elites. Consequently, many Chinese people do not perceive any essential difference between Chinese and Western societies. They might not even see any essential difference between North Korean and democratic societies, because every society is ruled by an absolute power holder, and the only difference lies in the specific rules set by those rulers. This also explains why so many Chinese students I meet on the streets do not consider China an unfree country, even though they clearly know the Communist Party enforces obvious prohibitions on public speech. Their understanding of freedom is simply not the same as the Westerners. So it could even be argued that the Communist Party's propaganda has achieved a form of cognitive distortion in Chinese society. We have become obsessed with our own subservience to the party, and we mistakenly believe this subservience to be the practice of freedom. So let's just end up this philosophical topic here with a paradox. People in free societies complain about lacking free speech, whereas people in a society without free speech believe they are free indeed. Here is another very funny phenomenon I'd like to address. Not only does the party forbid people from criticizing it, but it also strictly limits public expressions of praise for its actions. One cannot publicly support the Black Paper Girl, nor can anyone praise the CCP's decision to arrest her, just as one cannot publicly support the students of 1989, but also cannot praise the party's massacre on Tiananmen Square. Why is this the case? The reason is simple. They know what they did is indefensible. If the public were to openly advocate for a ruler's obvious and direct act of cruelty, it would only make the ruler look more like a tyrant and further deconstruct their political legitimacy. Just imagine this scenario. A group of high-ranking CCP officials living off taxpayers' money, drawing dividends from state-owned enterprises, buying luxury mansions in prime districts, keeping multiple mistresses, and sending their families abroad. And then, one night, they receive an order to arrest a young woman holding a blank sheet of paper on a university campus and to suppress all information about it. What does it look like? It looks like a group of powerful middle-aged men ganging up on an unarmed, innocent, and harmless girl. So this is shameful, and it is bullying, pure and simple. This brings me to the second question that I have been asked most frequently during the demonstrations. What do you want to achieve through this action? I'm simply conveying this message to the world, and I hope the CCP and Xi Jinping as well can understand it one day. A big bully should not prevail again and again, and those who defend the weak should not live in fear. You can see the Chinese slogan on my banner, which means "Stop being silent." we must demonstrate our attitude and courage to resist the CCP's bullying. Some people might argue that the CCP has to take these actions to maintain order in a country as large as China, and it's impossible to satisfy everyone. But my response is this: even if one can come up with all kinds of logical explanations for what the CCP does, just as a bully can always explain why they pick on others, that still does not make the bullying itself justified. Let's just make it crystal clear. Bullying is wrong. So to achieve my goal, I believe I have to go out onto the streets and talk to people face to face. And honestly, I enjoy having conversations with different people, including you watching this video, and discussing our political views in a peaceful, genuine, and decent way. But I am a little upset when I look at the words of those political figures on social media today, because all I see are slogans, propaganda, and emotional outbursts. Rarely do I see real conversations. That suddenly reminds me of something. Just a few weeks ago, a Chinese diplomat named Jian publicly threatened to decapitate Japan's Prime Minister Takaichi. What can I say? Mr. Xue, I just find your words ludicrous. I don't want to criticize anyone or start an argument here, just it is very unreal that a person can say such words without a shadow of awareness of how improper his behavior is. Do you even realize that your words could give the world the impression that you are a kind of person who wants to eliminate others simply because they hold political views different from yours, and that such mindset can be defined as antisocial? I honestly find it absurd, you know. It's shocking that China's political discourse is shaped by such people with antisocial and borderline personality traits. I start to wonder what Mr. Xue's wife thinks after seeing his husband's statement. Mrs. Xue, if you are watching this video, please consider this. Given that your husband just publicly threatened to decapitate a woman simply because she disagreed with him, how would you feel if one day you disagree with him? Are you really comfortable sleeping next to someone like this? So, just listen to me. Please listen to me and take my advice. Divorce him, shun him, and never see him again, okay? Take my advice, please. I just find it's funny, you know. It may be a good idea to call on all Chinese women to ostracize those power-hungry old men inside the Communist Party, because so many cases have shown that they are accustomed to rigid, violent, and exploitative approaches. And in addition, academic research has already shown that the power can damage a person's ability to empathize. So people like Xue Jian or Xi Jinping, having enjoyed too much of the pleasures that come with power, are at high risk of losing their capacity to feel the pain their abusive words or actions inflict on others. This may help explain why they bully the weak without even realizing it. And I believe living with such people can only be a form of torment. So all the ladies and all my fellow sisters in China, just keep distance from the party. Keep distance from those bullies. Do not sleep with them or give them affection. I know this is just my opinion and you don't have to agree with me. I don't know whether this call to action is just a wild joke or actually practical. I just find it very interesting and I want to end today's video with this crazy idea. This sounds very crazy, but just think it through and it is up to you whether this idea is practical or just my own gibberish. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or want to discuss anything, please leave me comments. And don't forget to subscribe this channel and keep supporting my cause to free China. See you later. Bye bye.